basic question to what kind of a first dynamic do you want to have, what kind of a second dynamic do you want to have, what kind of a third dynamic do you want to have, is what are you up to as a being? What are you trying to accomplish? And so only when you answer that question can you really answer the question of what kind of a dynamic do I want. You can define those things and then work on down the scale. Now basic goals are pan-determined goals. The basic action of a being is create. So basic goals, and again, if you go back to the factors, pure potential becomes some actual. And what the initial actual that manifests itself with each individual and the beginning of individuality is a choice among the potentialities of theta. So what are the potentialities of theta? Well, there's a long list, beauty, aesthetics, sanity, enjoyment, fun, all kinds of things, theta itself. So you'll find that basic goals are theta goals. And this keeps you out of, you don't get into the GPM track until you start to assume an identity and put out points to view. Because theta goals, staying in the theta universe, do not have to be opposed by anything. Anybody, once they work out their basic goal, in fact, the thing that 9 out of 10 people say is, well, isn't this everybody's goal? But it really isn't. Everybody has different goals. Sometimes they're similar, but there's a tremendous variety. But everybody sort of recognizes the value of other people's goals when they're on that theta level. And so it remains like a pan-determined thing. So you can create beauty, you can create aesthetics, you can create a lot of things without your attention going to a terminal which you then have a game with. Because that's how goals deteriorate into opposition terminals, and they're like, let's say your basic goal is something like to create space, to create a safe space. Okay, so you're playing the game, you assume an identity, you become a policeman. So then your goal becomes to catch criminals. So what's happened here? Number one, your own consciousness has reduced down to an individual awareness of self. You're not the other guy, that's for sure. There's no pan-determinism. You're self-determined, and you're opposing what? Are you creating a safe space, or are you opposing criminals? So now your goal is to catch criminals. Well, in order to have that game, of course, you're going to have to sort of create criminals with one hand in order to catch them with the other. That's just how it works. So, and then eventually you have enough overts on criminals and enough resistance and not want to be the criminal, so that eventually you're the criminal. And then that goes along for a while, and then you're the cop again, and then you're the criminal, and then you're the cop, and then you're the criminal, and then you're a dishonest cop, and then you're a criminal with a code of honor. And then you say, to hell with this, I'm playing a new game. So you get that whole GPM track, and then right out the bottom, all of that goes on automatic and becomes a GPM. And you say, now I'm going to do something different, but you're still in the same boat, really. Whenever you lose track of the idea of what you're trying to create in the theta universe, then because the theta universe the laws of the theta universe don't apply to the physical universe. You don't have to get into opposition terminals. You can have terminals to play games with in the theta universe, and you don't have to oppose them. And the physical universe tends to be organized around opposition. The only reason anything is solid is because two energies are opposing and forming a ridge. So then that's when people start to become messed or go into agreement with messed enough, they start to manifest some of these qualities and these situations where they're kind of stuck in games they don't want to be stuck in, and blah blah blah. And a lot of the tech, particularly OW tech, by the way, is designed to pull the plug on unwanted beingnesses and valences and oppositions. And you see this around so much. It's like people are asserting identities, being identities, objecting to identities, asserting purposes, attributing purposes to others, good purposes, bad purposes. And, you know, that's all just a lot of complexity that goes on after the basic thing is already deteriorated into a lower toned game. So anyway, that's a lot to say for an admin scale, but it's a pretty effective tool. One of the reasons why it didn't really work too well in the church is because there was a lot of seminars on admin scales, and pretty much any admin scale seminar that I ever heard about had people working out the valuable final product first, and then going backwards on it. I never could figure this out, but it never worked too well. Because right in the definition of an admin scale, it says a scale has been developed by Scientology which gives a sequence and relative seniority of subjects relating to organization. So they're taking the least important part of the whole admin scale and making that the central organizing point, and that just doesn't work. But when you really pull the string on it, they would really say, well, we didn't really know how to work out the goal, because we don't want to get into listing and nulling for goals, you know. Well, you see, when you do it the way I've described it, where you just ask the person to give you 3 or 4 examples of times they were happy in their life, per the definition of happiness. Times when a person was interested in what they were doing and they were happy with what they were doing, they were winning on a goal. And if you get 3 or 4 of these together, you string them together, and then it starts to become very visible. Because these are times in a person's life when their goals were the most visible to them. So you ask them about it. Well, they can see it, of course. And then, you know, you can work out, you know, times when you're happy with your first dynamic, times when you're happy with your mind, your body, you know, your abilities, and then you could work out an admin scale. Times you were happy with a 2D terminal, times you were happy with your family. You know, you just get all those together, you start to have stable datums. And then you can work out your policies. Well, look at times when those areas were going well. Do a stat analysis. What were the policies you were operating on? You had some good policies going. It isn't like it was all mysterious to you. You know, it says people have done well, but because one of the things that happens when you get into an affluence condition is you just sort of take it for granted, and it's easy to sort of not see why you got into that affluence. In other words, it says it's more dangerous. In an affluence condition, you can get a bigger crash on that than anything else, because you sort of drift off of your successful actions, and then bang, you're in danger or non-existence again. And so again, you're looking at times when you were doing well, and you know, what were the policies in those times, you know. And then the plans. Well, here's the ideal scene. You've just stated that. What's the existing scene? I want a healthy body. I have an unhealthy body. Okay, well, what gets you from here to there? That's your plan. That's the big idea. And then what would you need to do to implement that? Well, that's your programs, projects, and orders. Ideal scene, you just paint a picture of what your life would be like if all these factors were in. Stats, you know, how would you know you're making progress or not? And the VFP is how do you survive? The VFP is kind of interesting because there's commercial VFPs and there's non-commercial VFPs. You know, he says the VFP is something you exchange for goodwill and support. Well, goodwill, support is obviously, you know, you have a job or you do something or you sell something, you have a service and you get an exchange for that. But why do people like you? People that like you because they experience something from you. That's your VFP as a Thetan. See, that's something you could work out. It's a good idea.